What's good, friends list? Episode 22 of the Gamecast coming at you. And if one thing's for sure, we know that everybody loves a good comeback story. So that's why on this week's episode, we're taking a look at how developers and publishers can regain the trust of their fan bases after poor launches or mismanaged moves. From tone-deaf decisions like Bethesda Game Studios adding Fallout First to Fallout 76, to redemption arcs such as with the resurrection of Hello Games No Man's Sky with the Beyond update, we see what it takes to shift the tide for the possible sinking ships. Plus, a new Half-Life game is finally announced, but it may not be in the manner most fans were hoping for. All of this and more in another jam-packed episode of the Game Pass Gamecast.
Now the fun begins.
Budget.
Stop! You violated the law.
Welcome back to another episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox and Xbox Game Pass, including news, rumors, and conversations around them video games, because guess what? Video games are cool, man. I am your host, as always, Travis White, aka Travis on most internet platforms. New episodes of the show drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us wherever you get those, and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast to stay up to date with everything regarding the show and video games alike. As always, joining me, my partners in crime, Mike Peapack and Adam Marshy Marsh. Adam, what's good, what's going on, and what have you been playing? Even though I think I have an idea, and it's not Fire Emblem for once, I think.
That's true. It's true. There's a new kid in town on the Switch,
New
it's
drug of choice, you would say?
Dragon Quest Builders 2. No, I'm just kidding. I am playing a bit of that, but the big event this month has been Pokemon Sword and Shield. I picked up Shield.
Oh, you went Shield? I feel like that's the controversial the pick. It seems like most people are going Sword.
It is, yeah. I think there's like more Sword exclusives that people like. Mm-hmm. I could have gone either way, and with so many people getting Sword, I'm like, well, I'm gonna get Shield so that I can trade with them and we'll get those exclusives back and forth. I have like a bunch of people at work that I'm gonna be trading with here soon.
Nice. So what is your take on the whole, fiasco going on with really people just being assholes towards Game Freak? What do you think, like, what's your take on all of this? Since you're very, like, we kind of think, hey, game development's hard. This is what's going on. Like, don't believe just stuff at face value. Like, there's so much that goes into this. People aren't just cutting corners to cut corners, yada, yada. What is your take on all of this with how people are really just being assholes to Game Freak?
I think there are a lot of, like, valid criticisms mixed in with a lot of the bitter herbs.
Very much so, yes.
So it takes a bit of work to, like, separate those out. There are some nitpicks I have with the game, I'm not going to lie. But overall, I think it's a good Pokemon game. Like, the stuff that people have been talking about, like the national dex being cut doesn't really bother me. The way that they changed the moves, they took out some moves. I don't know if that affects like competitive playing Pokemon people. What else? It's not like the best looking Switch game ever. Like, right. It does chug a lot in the wild area. So it has some technical issues there too. So some problems. But nothing has ever caused me to be like, wow, this game was not worth the money. I want a refund. Like, take me out. Stop the bus. I want to get off. It's like, I paid my money. I got the game, and I'm still enjoying it. I'm at the 6th gym now, I think. I just beat the Fairy Gym. And yeah, I've been having a good time. There's some new stuff in it that I think is really enjoyable. I like that they kept the Go mechanic from Pokemon Let's Go, where you can see the Pokemon in the overworld and like decide to go after them or not. There are some Pokemon that are like mysterious, like you just see a rustle in the grass and you don't know what they are until you face them. But it's good that they held on to that.
Do you think, just gut reaction, I know you said you're about on the 6th badge or just past the 6th badge, do you think this is an actual advance or evolution of the series in the proper way? I mean, a lot of people it seems like for years, because to me, Pokemon has just been this franchise that's kind of evolved beyond just oh, it's first and foremost, it's a kid's game. Like, verbatim out there, it's for kids, like it's marketed for kids, but their primary user base, the fans especially, most fans have been playing for 20 plus years now. Like, it's not a brand new thing to a lot of people, and a lot of the criticisms are valid to an extent. Like, for me, how the hell don't they have voice acting in a game in 2019? That I've seen some, video of the game and some gameplay, and there are some elements that's like, they definitely look like they planned for voice acting for this game at one point. I don't know if the Switch couldn't handle all of that, throwing that in there, but at the same time, there's been voice acting in much heavier games. So that's really kind of my stand on it. But what do you think this is an actual evolution of the series? Obviously, people wanting this Breath of the Wild revamp of the series, but at the same time, do you think this is at least a step in the right direction for evolving a formula that's been, I don't want to stay stagnant for so long, but it's been that go-to formula of here's 8 badges, go and run through them, go do the Elite 8, you're the Pokemon champion. At face value, at least.
I want to say it does attempt a couple different things that might have the potential to evolve the formula, but I don't think it commits to any one of them quite enough. It is still just basically the same Pokemon we've been playing. It is just, you do a gym challenge, and those gyms might be a little bit, a little more unique. You have like special missions or like more puzzly before you get to the final gym leader battle. So that's interesting, but it doesn't evolve the formula too much. You got the wild area where there's like weather conditions and different zones where you can catch Pokemon at different times of day. That could come close to evolving it, but it's not fully fleshed out yet. There's potential there, but it really needs work if they want to take it to the next step. I think it's a good Pokemon game to the standards that we have been seeing Pokemon games for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
I think it's still a peer of those. It is not yet a step above.
Yeah, and like you said, the one thing that really I enjoyed when I picked up Let's Go last year was the transition away from just random encounters, where there would still be, like you're saying, especially in this one, that was one thing that I'm really glad that they kept, and especially adding in how you're saying the rustling in the grass, that you can go over and it's might be, a rarer Pokemon, or that there's less of a chance for seeing that Pokemon, like it could be a shiny, something like that doesn't necessarily stick out right away. I really like that, because that does give you, the one thing that I always hated was going through almost like the Final Fantasy VII effect, where that game would be, I think, so much more approachable to so many people if the random encounters weren't there. It just feels like a dated feature. So having something like that where you're actually able to, if you want to grind, you can go and grind. If you want to focus on catching certain types of Pokemon, they're right there. You don't have to worry about, just doing circles around one area forever.
Right.
And just grinding through or running away from Pokemon until you find the right one. So to me, that's really a big thing. But I'm excited to play it eventually. It's not close on my radar, at least right now. That might be one that I pick up, after the new year, whenever we're kind of in that like Christmas hangover and looking for something to play. But it's definitely on my radar, and it's definitely something I do want to play though. But
would recommend it. I'll trade some stuff with you when you get it.
Let's do it, Mike.
Yeah.
Mike, what's good? What's going on? What have you been playing, man?
Oh man, nothing much has changed in my world. I guess we're not playing Halo pretty much anymore, because the next competitive game is going to be Reach again. So no real need. I mean, I still play Halo 3 every once in a while, but not like I was. Been playing a lot of NHL, and then I just bought the definitive edition for Age of Empires 2.
Nice.
So I've been playing some of that. So just mixing it up a little bit, going against the grain, going against my shooter background, and just playing some different stuff just to get a mix in there.
So Mike, did you try the Art of War yet?
Yeah, I have. Yep.
Were you able to gold any of them?
I got silver on the early, like I only played the first one, which is like the start, and I got silver. I've been relatively close to gold, but I wasn't able to actually get gold.
I was so tantalizingly close to gold several times, and I'm like, I would have to play absolutely perfectly to get this gold. The other challenges I think were a lot of fun. I couldn't gold any of them, but it feels nice that something that's been a part of the game for a long time, like that competitive fundamentals that's been in multiplayer for all this time, it's never really been a part of the game itself. So it was nice to see them really bring that in and kind of make it official.
Yeah, I agree. You could download mods with the last iteration with like the high def remake, you could download mods to kind of do the exact same thing that the Art of War is doing. But the fact that it's just integrated right into the menu is really great. And I think we're seeing like a huge growth in Twitch viewers of the game, for one, and for two, the community is going to be a lot better off because of it, because they're have these built-in tools to help the community get better off the bat. Now, whether or not people are willing to like actually use the tools that they've been given, that's one thing, because the other thing that they integrated is like a really easy like view, or like you can just watch games basically now, where you can just go in the last like 25 or 30 games launched on all the servers, you can actually watch those games. So they like, you can kind of just watch. And I've watched some players, and I've seen some players do some interesting things in ranked matches thus far. Players that might not be that skilled, but they're wanting to just play the integrated matchmaking system, which is also great for the franchise, because that's the first time anything has ever been done like that for Age of Empires. Is you can just search games and search matchmaking, get randomly matched up against people, and it's really easy.
Yeah,
so
it used to be.
Go ahead.
It used to be you had to go into the lobby and look through the whole list of games. It was like StarCraft, like classic StarCraft, and it would be like, okay, I'm looking for a 2v2 noob game, like, and you would go in and there would be people like sandbagging who were really good at the game, but they put noob on there.
Yeah, that was like the big thing. That's what always happened in those StarCraft games. Like, you were always just playing against people that you really shouldn't have been playing against or with. And it's just like, it was a shame, but they're matching you up via ELO now, which is really nice. And yeah, I think that they've made really good strides going for the future, because quite frankly, the only reason why the game was even relevant recently is the fact that there is a competitive community, and they take it relatively serious. People are practicing, they're having tournaments, and it's all community based, crowd-funded type stuff, where people are donating their money to get the prize pools up. People are donating their time to cast the game. So, the competitive community exists for Age of Empires 2 especially. And I think they did a really good job with the definitive edition going into AoE 4 potentially, of, getting a nice solid base and like trying to help the community get better too. Because having to download mods wasn't a big deal for those who they wanted to genuinely improve, but there might have been a bunch of newer players that didn't even know that those mods existed. And then there's build orders that you can use to, if your objective is to do a certain type of rush, whether it be archers, scout cavalry, whatever your plan is, there's certain build orders that you can utilize to get to that point a lot easier. So I think, they did a really good job, and I'm really happy with the game. I'm glad that I spent the money on it. Like, 15 extra bucks for what they provided us is literally nothing. I felt like the value is certainly there, and all the improvements made, like, the game is so smooth. It's terrific. I'm really enjoying playing it.
Do you have any nitpicks so far?
I
don't want to make this too long, but
hey, no, you're doing a great job right now. You asked. This is nice, man. I'm just kicked back
Travis
here.
is just sitting back.
Doggy dog, go ahead, man. I'm just relaxing, man. Hands off the wheel. Hands off the wheel. Go ahead.
I don't really have any nitpicks per se. I mean, the viewership portion of it. For instance, T90 Official, one of the biggest casters, if not the biggest caster in the entire game, is trying to do like a little community game between two of the pros, if you will. And, he's having a lot of trouble with glitches with the viewing system and the UI not working. So that's probably my only nitpick, is just little stuff like that makes the game more fluid and make it work better for those who are genuinely trying to put the time in to grow the game.
Adam.
Yes.
You weren't here last week. You somehow disappeared. We don't know where you went to. There's some
I don't either. There's a gap in my memory. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really weird. When did you get that scar on your stomach? It looks like maybe you're missing a kidney. I don't know. No, but since we talked about, real quick, we just talked about AoE 4 last week. Just kind of recapping XO19 with the official gameplay trailer that came out for it and all the hoopla around that. Just your gut reactions to that. Are you looking forward to AoE 4, I'm guessing? And from what you've seen, what makes you excited?
Hell yes, I'm looking forward to it. From what I've seen so far, it looks like, just from the brief more cinematic-y. I think it was gameplay footage, right? But it was more, it was cut together to be more of a cinematic type
Yeah,
thing.
it was a montage.
Yeah, from that trailer, it looks like you're gonna have control of just way more units on the board at one time. That's like the one thing that kind of stood out to me. So being able to control way more things on screen at one time, like maybe your population limit in this game is going to be like 400 by default or something, and that's just how it's going to be balanced. I think that's pretty exciting because it opens up so many more possibilities when you double the effective amount of shit you can have going on per player on screen at one time. Way more strategic depth there.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm excited for it. I mean, that's definitely something. It's gonna be on Game Pass, so I'm gonna try it out. I've never traditionally been a strategy fan like that, but at the same time, like I did love Warcraft 3, Warcraft 2. I did love
I've
StarCraft.
actually been replaying those recently.
Really? That's something
Yeah.
I've been thinking about. There was at one point when I was kind of doing a Let's Play series on my Twitch channel. I was thinking about just going and doing the campaign for Warcraft 3. And that's
I would totally watch that.
I actually have a key I need to give to Kyle that I randomly found for free. So
No kidding. We could do some 2v2s.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I texted him the one day about that, and I forgot to send it to him. But I do have that. I need to send that to him. On my end, like I said, follow up to last week, Jedi Fallen Order, man. That's
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to go too in depth for it because we're definitely going to shocker. This is going to be the way I'm going to talk about it. It's going to be in our Game of the Year talks that we have probably in the next month or so, and I'll go much deeper into that. But I did roll credits on it. I did play it on PS4, just because it was a game that I knew I wanted to, just from everything I've seen, previews, reviews. It was a game that I knew I'd want to go and get a platinum trophy in. Just because I knew I wanted to search every nook and cranny of that game. Similar to almost, it has the same feeling as like Marvel Spider-Man, that I did go out of my way to get the platinum. But it's a game that I was explaining to my fiance about it whenever she was like, so how do you feel about the game? Because she's like, I've heard you yelling at it before. I've heard you like real pissed off, threatening some inanimate character's life. That game reminds me why I love video games so much. It is a video game, and I mean that in the sense of everything about it is a game mechanic. It doesn't try to be some realistic experience. It leans into being a hodgepodge of great things. And one thing I did hear about that I think really resonates with me is that I've used the term before on, I can't remember what game we were talking about, but it's a jack of all trades, master of none. But in this case, it's a jack of all trades and a master of Star Wars. It tells, if you're a fan of Star Wars, this is hands down probably, I feel very safe saying this, probably the best modern Star Wars story we're ever going to get, unless they build upon this, but which, no spoilers, they will. They have it set up that, obviously with how Disney is with Star Wars, we're going to get more of these, especially with how it's selling and reviewing and everything. But it's a jack of all trades, and it takes the combat of Dark Souls in a good way that you're more focused on parrying and dodging, and it's more just it's not hack and slash. It's not just running through and smashing buttons, but it's not overbearing in the sense of like you're not scared away from like, oh fuck, I run up on this enemy, it hits me one time, I'm dead. Because that did happen to me at first, but it's scalable that you're not completely like, if you die, you're not sent back 45 minutes, you have to trek back through and everything like that. It's much more approachable, but it takes that combat that people love so much about Dark Souls that I actually enjoy. That's the one thing I did enjoy about Dark Souls games and Soulsborne games, that it requires you to learn how to time your parries and your dodges and different move sets and things like that. It's really, really intuitive on that end. It has the big set pieces and cinematic storytelling of Uncharted, and which really, hits home to me. And I think that's being Uncharted already kind of based on Indiana Jones in a way, incorporated in the Lucasfilm world, that to me, that it just plays so well to that. It plays so well to Star Wars. It does everything that I would want it to. It's basically if Dark Souls, Uncharted, name a great action game, even Zelda with the puzzle, with the way that temples are set up, the puzzling in that.
Mhm.
If all those titles in Star Wars had an orgy, that's what came out, and it's good. That's the thing, it's good. To me right now, early running right now, it's my game of the year hands down, and it's a game that, to be honest, when it goes on sale on Xbox, I'm gonna buy it on Xbox so I could play it on my Xbox One X and go through it again because it's that good. It's going to be one of those games that I look back and say, man, I wish I could experience that for the first time. But we'll go into that, I'm sure, when we get closer to our game of the year talk, either at the tail end of the year or the year after, or the beginning of the new year. But moving into it, let's talk some housekeeping before we get into the news. Do you like free games? Unless you're a psychopath, you definitely do. So let us hook you up. We're giving away a brand new free game of your choice on any console to one lucky listener. And all you have to do is the following. Follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast, retweet the pinned tweet on our profile, and make sure you're listening to the show to know if you won. That's it. Once we hit our follower goal, which we are well over halfway to it now, we'll pull a winner and get someone squared away with a free game. So head on over to at GPGC Podcast and enter today. Guys, before we go into the news, you know me, I usually come and tell you if something big happens over the weekend at the movie theater. And boy, I had two experiences over the weekend. And real quick, just going to fly through them because we do have a little bit of a meaty show ahead of us. The first one was the best. The first one's the funniest. So I'll start with that. My fiance wanted to go see Frozen 2 this weekend. Sure, whatever. We have the movie pass. I'm good with it. Yeah, let's go do it. Like, I'll see literally whatever. And actually, she made me watch the first Frozen. Didn't really care for it, even though I'm a huge Disney nut. But this one I actually really liked. There were a lot more jokes that were aimed towards the adults taking their kids to go see this and or fiancés like me. So it's crowded. It's opening night. Fucking theater is packed. We walk in. We're looking for seats. All right. We head up the aisle and we take one of the, like, you know, when you're walking up the theater and it has the two aisles on each side and they have those, like, you know, rows of seats with only like 4 on the ends.
Yep.
Mhm.
Like end cap seats. So we're walking up. We go to the right hand side. We're like, oh, there's 4 seats right there. Let's hit those up. I start heading up. And boy, did I get some flashback of young love. I look up. We get to the row. I look behind us before we even sit down. Previews are just starting to roll. We're just starting to get into the previews. I look behind, and there's some teenage kids there. Probably junior high, like young teen kids. Obviously a couple, I'm guessing. The girl is already sitting on the boy's lap. Previews. We're at previews.
It's moving quick.
It's moving. I tell you what. I looked at Molly, and she was like, don't say anything. Don't you fucking say anything.
She saw it coming.
She saw it. She knows me better than anyone. That she lives with it. And like, I literally looked at her and went, I said, I'm just glad. Loud enough, they definitely heard. I said, I'm just glad somebody's getting something tonight. Somebody's getting some action. I almost turned around and be like, right, my man? I looked at her. The whole time I said, I'm not gonna lie, Mom, I'm gonna have to look back a couple of times. If I hear something going on, I'm like a little kid in the cage. I gotta see what's going on back there. Like, I see you. I mean, good on him, man. I mean, that takes some guts. It's a packed movie theater. I mean, you're going in like that. You have no shame. Sure. Hey, no shame whatsoever.
No shame, all game.
Guys just, hey, man, I got to crush a lip some way, you know? So, really, I was baffled the whole time. Then people will come and sit next to us. And, you know me, I sit there, I fidget every now and then. This lady looks at me. Like 10 minutes into the movie, she said, babe, I'll give you $100 if you stop, like, shaking your leg. Verbatim. And I, like, stopped. I was like, okay. And I just looked at her for, like, 2 minutes, like, okay, go ahead. You can give me $100 now. Put the pressure on her, and she just, like, looked away. I'm like, okay, sorry. I don't know what to tell you. Molly, as always, was very much like, I just shaking her head. She's like, I really can't take you anywhere. But more importantly, it was the kids behind us that were great. I
Never a dull moment at the movie theater.
No, it's really a great experience going with me to the movie theater. Just because, especially too, like, I love calling out people who are like talking during the movie or like sitting there on their phone with the screen full blast.
Yeah.
Like the one time I did tell somebody who was like sitting like 2 rows in front of us at like a theater that was pretty packed in like an opening night. I just was like, "Hey, yo, what are you looking at, man? What do you got on your screen down there? Yo, this guy's watching porn." Oh, this dude's watching porn. I didn't.
He's
do that
on
part.
the Pee Wee Herman theater train.
My God.
No, but anyway, let's head into the news. That was my movie theater story for this week. But let's head into the news. We got some big news out this week. Of course, lead story, because we do have a big PC gamer market with our viewers. Half-Life Alyx officially revealed with a March 2020 release date. This comes by Matt Kim via IGN. Go over there. As always, links in the description. Go over there, give Matt a click, check him out. Valve has officially revealed Half-Life Alyx, a full-length Half-Life game that's played completely in VR. The title was set to be released for all PC-based VR headsets in March 2020. Half-Life Alyx is Valve's first Half-Life game since 2007's Half-Life 2 Episode 2. The game takes place between the events of the first and second Half-Life games. The new VR title stars the eponymous Alyx Vance and her father Eli as they work to organize a resistance against the Combine. Players will take control of Alyx just as it was revealed in a report following the leak of Half-Life Alyx earlier this week. Like previous games in the series, Half-Life Alyx's core gameplay will feature a combination of world exploration, puzzles, and combat. Everyone at Valve is excited to be returning to the world of Half-Life, says Valve founder Gabe Newell.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I believe you, Gabe.
In a press release, VR has energized us. We're invested a lot of ourselves in the technology, but we're also game developers at heart, and to be devoted ourselves to a VR game this ambitious is just as exciting. Half-Life Alyx runs on the Source Engine 2 and will be playable on Steam via all PC-based VR headsets. This includes Valve's Index VR headset and HTC Vive, but also Oculus Quest with a PC link cable and Microsoft's mixed reality headset. Half-Life Alyx is available for pre-purchase now for $59.99. It will also be free to anyone who owns a Valve Index. So, whatever you think about Valve, whatever you think about them and their approach to game development or whatever, Valve returning to the Half-Life franchise, and more importantly, AAA game development, is still exciting for gaming in general, period. It's an IP that obviously has been a system seller in the past with dedicated PC gamers and investing people to go out and buy PCs to be able to play this game. But do you think this experience is what is going to push people on a much broader spectrum to invest in VR as an available platform in more homes, as a casual gamer can go out and buy this? Do you think this is what's going to push VR into more homes, comparatively speaking?
Yeah, I mean, I have become cynical with Valve, much like the way I feel about Bungie, much like the way I feel about Blizzard, much like the way I feel about a lot of game devs, including Bethesda now. It's a situation where it feels like a lot of Half-Life fans, I know Adam included, are really excited, but it seems to me like their VR headsets, like this was the plan all along. They were going to use a Half-Life game to try to push their VR headsets. They were going to try to push people into upgrading their PCs to be able to run virtual reality. To me, I mean, I might be a negative Nancy, but it just feels so like I can't help but feel cynical about it and feel like this is what they were planning to do. They wanted to push headset sales. They wanted to push VR sales. And this is the platform by which they're doing so. Mm-hmm. And if they make an okay Half-Life game in the meantime, great. But it doesn't feel like what the Half-Life family and fans wanted. They wanted a new Half-Life game. I mean, there's people out there that are still shamelessly begging for a new Half-Life game. And this just feels like a new Half-Life game. But by the way, check out our awesome VR system that we have set up. And by the way, Valve released a VR headset, so you might want to check that one out if you want to play this game.
Well, to be fair, at the same time, I agree. I mean, it's definitely, they're putting this out there to push Valve Index, hands down. That's one of the big selling points of it. But it is available on every other PC VR headset. It's not like it's exclusive. You can only play this game on Valve Index. Like, hands down. This is the only way you can. It's still available. It's technically a third-party game. I mean, for any headset, if you could look at it that way, like it's like Jedi Fallen Order. You could play that on Xbox, PlayStation, PC, whatever. So in the VR landscape at least.
You offer a good solution, or at least a good counter to my argument, but then my argument comes back and says, like, yeah, if they made it their headset exclusive, how egregious is that? Like, how is that, like, that's not,
yeah.
That's making it too obvious with their marketing.
Mm.
I think that allowing other headsets is, obviously, I don't know how you could even make it their headset exclusive. I don't understand that technology. I wouldn't know how that would even work.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, like, just my cynical self with game devs nowadays, especially with AAA game devs, if it looks too good to be true, it's definitely too good to be true.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it might be a great Half-Life game. Like, that might happen. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, they might make a stellar Half-Life game. I'm not discounting that or saying that that's never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a situation where, like, I'm just concerned that they're not in it for the right reasons, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, yeah, and it is a business at the end of the day, and they're trying to, like we said before, push their Valve Index. That's what they're trying to, hey, here is a AAA 15 to 20 hour experience. It's not a tech demo, it's not this and that. Like, here's a full-fledged Half-Life game for VR. Yes, you can play it here. If you buy a Valve Index or you own a Valve Index, you get it for free, but you're free to own it, play it on whatever platform of VR on PC that you have, whatever hardware you do have. But they did say they were open in an interview with Jeff Keighley after, and Jeff is going to be doing a Final Hours video series on this leading into Half-Life Alyx's launch next year. So leading into that, he'll have some video content behind that as well. He's been there behind the scenes, kind of capturing all the development process behind it. But in an interview with the developers, they are saying this isn't going to be the end all be all with Half-Life. Granted, take that with a grain of salt. We've seen that before, but it is exciting that I feel like this is going to be a toe in the water to a sense of how well people respond to this. Like, here is a Half-Life, almost not a spin-off, but it is a prequel in a sense, I guess, if you want to say.
Yeah.
It's hard to say it's a prequel when it's still, like, post Half-Life 1, but you
it's
get
a
what I'm saying.
midquel.
Yeah, midquel, something like that. But it's not a step forward in the story, I guess, for your numerical Half-Life games. But
yeah.
I think we definitely are in a better place with Half-Life, period, with this being out. If for fans
There's
of
a
Half-Life.
game coming out.
Right. Adam, you're a Half-Life fan. What are your thoughts on this?
My first look at the game was just stunning.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because that very day, there's this whole web of like coincidences around the first time I saw this game. I was actually looking at trailers for, I believe it's called Boneworks.
Oh, yeah. You
or
sent that
maybe
over
that's
to
the
us.
developer. I can't remember what the name of the actual game is, but you're like, you play as a developer of a VR simulation,
Mhm.
and you're in there and you kind of get like attacked by these like wireframe enemies, and it has some really cool, like, your hands interacting with the environment in very just organic ways. Like, you can grab onto pipes, you can push enemies with your hands, you can push all the objects around, and like you interact with everything in the world just like you would expect. And I think Valve is actually working with those developers to make Half-Life Alyx. And so I was like, at first I was like, oh, I want to play this thing by Boneworks.
Mhm.
And then I thought, oh, Valve is making a new Half-Life, and it's probably going to have like feature parity with this.
Mhm.
I'm really excited to get into that. And as far as the exclusivity stuff goes, I think Valve probably really wanted to make it an exclusive, but the landscape in VR right now is so fragmented, and like there's not a whole lot of early adopters right now.
With how cynical like PC gamers, and I'm saying that blanket statement, obviously it doesn't mean everybody, but the very loud minority of PC gamers, if that would have been, who are very cynical and very toxic, like if they would have said, hey, this is exclusive to Valve Index, they probably would have stormed Valve's headquarters and grabbed Gabe and like beat him in the street. Like, have you ever been taken out to the street and beaten till you piss blood?
Yeah, I don't think it was going to happen. They realized they had to make the decision to make it like cross-platform, just because there's so few. There's not a complete audience on any one platform, right? You're like the VR audience. You need to basically include everybody.
Yeah, and I think at least we're trending in the right direction with VR. Like, as I've stated before, like with VR, I'm a big supporter of VR. Do I get motion sick with it? Yes. Like, and I never get motion sick with anything, so I thought VR would be fine for me. But I can only
see
play
that's weird because I get motion sick on every ride ever.
You don't.
Basically, that goes in circles.
Yeah.
And I could just sit there and rock Doom VR for like 2 hours and just not even phased.
Yeah. I mean, I remember playing Resident Evil 7. You were the one who were like in the headset for like 2 hours at a time when we were switching back and forth. Like,
yeah,
you could handle it, no problem. It's weird, but I think I am a big supporter of VR, and I think this is a great way to push VR sales. But at the same time, too, at least we're trending in the right direction of accessibility because of headsets like Oculus Quest, which is only at a $400 price point, and you don't need a hefty PC to play it because it does everything in the headset. It has its processing unit. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments or whatever, but I believe everything's done through the headset. It's all wireless. That's another big thing for me. It's a pain in the ass to put on PSVR because of all the wires and get it all set up, and it's very immobile. But with Quest, all you really need is one wire that connects one like USB-C type. It's something similar to that. There's a Oculus Link cable that goes into your PC that allows you to play any Rift game or anything that's compatible with Rift, which is 99% of the VR games that come out on Steam and whatnot. So it's getting more accessible. It's just not there yet. I think if this came out in when we get to like the PSVR 2 or something like that level of VR where it's become such a home staple in like 2 to 3 years, I think we're going to be there. Yeah. I think that'd be better to put this out. I still think this game should have been like, we should have gone to Half-Life 3 first, then this, and then be like, oh, this is the Half-Life 3 episode 1 and 2 that are connecting everything, but it's only on VR. Like, I think people would be more receptive to that. That's just me, but I'm with you. The game looks fucking awesome, and it makes me want to go and actually sit down for once and play Half-Life 1, Half-Life 2, and the first 2 episodes. Like, I do want to go and play those because of this, because it's tempting. I'm probably not going to get a VR headset for this unless I can get one for, like, fucking next to nothing, but I'm not going to go on, do that. But the one other big thing that comes out of this is the Source 2 engine. Like, that's true. That was buried under everything. That's to me is pretty exciting. That means that, Valve isn't, to me, I don't care what you say about, Valve or whatever. I agree with a lot of it too. But they wouldn't go out and make a brand new engine or an updated engine for what they have for this, all the assets for this, and not just leave it there and be done with it. They wouldn't make a fully new engine just for a VR experience and then move on. Right. Especially one that is so transferable and flexible as the Source engine. At least on my end, that's how I look at it.
This is the foundation for their next generation of games, probably.
Yeah, and then it kind of stems into me, although, cynical and feeling like Valve's a cash cow because, that's what they are. But does that mean a new Counter-Strike's going to be coming out? Since they based it off of like a Half-Life mod to begin with, are they going to use the Source 2 engine for a new Counter-Strike? You know what I mean? That thought comes to mind for me, at least.
That seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, I still think, if you ask me, I find it hard to not put CSGO, and this is kind of just a little offshoot, but I find it hard to not put CSGO at least in a top 3 position for games of the decade. Like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's hands down the most entertaining esport out there, in my opinion. League is one thing because there's so many moving pieces. To me, that's so hard to watch and keep track of everything, where CSGO is so much viewer friendly, if you ask me, where it's the way they have cams set up, the way that they're able to focus in on certain plays going around, the way they're able to transition camera views and different things like that. Like, I think it's presented in such a better way, but I think it's so much easier to see big plays that are being done with high-end CSGO esports where you're seeing these high level plays that you can't go in there and do that. Where League, you could see that they're high end plays, but it's not as flashy, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know. I agree. Like with a portion of your argument. Don't get me wrong. I don't think you're wrong, but I feel like when it comes to Counter-Strike, it is easier to kind of digest from like a casual player's point of view. Like when someone makes a crazy play, obviously you can just like
even if
you just know, like obviously that flick was insane. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
even if you don't know like certain positions that you want to throw smokes or anything, like you don't have the actual strategic. You don't need the strategic knowledge to see like that was a really good play.
Right. Exactly. And then with League, the only issue I have with that game from a casual point of view is like, first and foremost, people who have never seen a MOBA before have no clue what the hell is going on in League of Legends. Secondly, the plays are normally like when you play ranked play, like even when you're a diamond ranked player, you don't even play the same game that the pros play. The pros play a game that'll end like 5 kills to 3 kills after like 35 minutes, and they'll have 300 farm apiece. Like they just play a different game with the money or with the gold system that you get from farming and everything. Like it's just so different. But the other thing is, unless you're a really high player, the mechanics required to make certain plays in League of Legends are so foreign to players that, like, mechanically, like CSGO, like, yeah, I know counter strafing, I know things of that nature. But when you're just watching raw ability and headshots and the plays are slower developing when people flank in CSGO, or if they make a smart push, you know, the casters are able to tell you why this is happening. Whereas League of Legends, things are happening so fast that the announcers just pretty much just yell and you're like, ah, like, that's the only thing that you get. Where CSGO, the casters can kind of break down things. And that's why I think CSGO is even better of an esport to digest for people than League of Legends from a casual point of view, as well, of like a high level. You know what I mean? Definitely. And that's why it should be in the top 3, if not top 2 of this decade, because of the esports realm of it and how, you know, popular the game has gotten and is, you know?
No, definitely. Absolutely. So it'll be,
and the skin gambling was kind of wild, but that's died down now since, obviously.
Yeah. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. I'm really, if anything, like I said, it's still an exciting time for gaming in general, whenever you have such a important franchise to the history of gaming come back in a big way of a AAA polished experience. It's not just a tech demo or anything like that. So it's exciting nonetheless. I'm excited leading up into it, seeing reviews and preview events and whatnot. So
I think it has a chance to become a killer app for VR for some people. It might end up being that for me, and that's definitely not universal because VR is still prohibitively expensive. But
yeah,
I'm in a position where, knowing that it's like 6 or 7 months out, I can plan for it and be like, yeah, it's time for me to buy in.
Right, definitely. So moving into the next story, this one focused a little more on Xbox at hand. Xbox isn't so focused on games as a service titles anymore, marketing boss Greenberg says. This comes by Alex Calvin via PC Gamer Insider. As always, go over there, check the link out. The head of marketing for Xbox, Aaron Greenberg, has said that Microsoft is more in favor of letting developers do their own thing now, rather than focusing on industry trends like games as a service. Speaking originally to Kotaku at the XO19 event in London last week, Greenberg said that the big M isn't alone in having been on a journey of discovery with the business model, as well as saying that there is interest from consumers in both service-based projects and more traditional games. Listen, I think the whole industry is on something of a learning curve there with games as a service, Greenberg said. For us, we empower our creative teams to go and make the games they want, or so, hey, I think it's great Rare wanted to create Sea of Thieves and do something new with the games as a service idea. And we fully respect and support them in continuing to do that. But it's also okay for a game to just be a game, to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I think The Outer Worlds and Wasteland 3 are great examples of that. We'll continue to support teams who want to do that. I would never underestimate the power of fans and fan feedback in this, and development teams listen to those folks. So I think we'll see that pendulum swing back into more of a balanced place. It's great for us to show a lot of new games at something like this, and among these new titles, you can see not everything's being built as a game of service. But that said, with some, it does make sense, and we'll continue to support those and support the or fans playing those titles. To me, this is like a no-brainer statement. Like, this is a absolutely great approach because gaming is such at a it's getting close to not its peak and it's going to descend, but gaming's at such a high popular level right now in terms of like there's so many different audiences available for gaming that games as a service can live and strive and, you know, do everything with it. But we're also in a place that single player experience, narrative heavy, you know, campaigns are still very much a viable option. Looking at Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, looking at Pokemon, looking at all these, like, you know, traditionally single player experiences, they still sell gangbusters. That it makes sense to go and do that. Not everything needs to be a live service, but it's also still important to have those live services at the same time. What do you guys think?
I'm glad that they at least made a statement towards this idea, right? Because I think the cynical gamer in me is always thinking like, things are getting worse. Games as a service is going to become the norm, and we're not going to have those kind of bespoke experiences anymore. It's just good to see some confirmation that that's not really the case and that it's not going away.
No, definitely.
Yeah, I agree with Adam. It's definitely concerning. It was a concerning time when it was looking like this is the way Microsoft was going to go. Games as a service were kind of picking up popularity, if you will, or at least the idea of it was being talked about a lot. People were like, you know, like, would that really be all that bad? And I agree with Adam. It's nice that we get some clarity from them and they're saying, hey, this is not what it looks like. You know, it may bark like a dog. It may look like a dog, but it's not a dog yet. You know, we can't confirm that because obviously we don't know 100% sure, but I agree with Adam 100%. It was really concerning at the time, but I'm glad that they're kind of giving us a little bit of clarity on what they're planning to do as like a company and what they expect their devs to do and everything.
No, absolutely. And like I said, the broad spectrum of gamers is so big right now that there's so many different pockets that things can live in these pockets, that everything doesn't need to have a multiplayer component to it. You know, everything doesn't need to be a living, breathing service that, you know, there are games, Fortnite, Siege, all these like heavy multiplayer games. Yes, you do need roadmaps for that. You need all these things, and we're going to talk about that, I'm sure, in our big topic that we're coming up to, but at the same time, you could still put those out. Look at Respawn. They put out Apex. They put out, you know, Titanfall earlier before that. And now they're putting out Jedi Fallen Order, where that kind of covers all your bases. There's a Battle Royale standalone game. There's a traditional shooter with a multiplayer component. And then there's just a single-player Star Wars game that all of them do well, and all of them, outside of Titanfall 2, have sold or have high player bases still, you know, comparative speaking at least. So to me, this is a no-brainer statement, and it's a no-brainer approach, and that's really, in my opinion, obviously this is an Xbox podcast, or at least an Xbox heavy podcast that, you know, take it as a grain of salt if you want from my end. But to me, you place PlayStation on there, Nintendo, PC, whatever, that's the approach you should probably take. Everything can be for there's an experience for everybody, and you shouldn't shun one thing just for an industry trend, or at least something that looks appealing, you know, with a dollar amount. But that's just me. And then last thing before we move into our big topic, last week we talked about new games coming to Xbox Game Pass over the next handful of months. One of the big ones that is coming next month is The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which a lot of people are really excited for. That there's a ton of people who haven't played it that are now wanting to get into it because of Game Pass being one.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game where myself included, I gave a fair shake through rental process, through you know, a friend letting me borrow it for a little bit. It's just a game that didn't gain my attention, and I didn't have the time to put into it. But since it's going to be on Game Pass, it's one that I'll give a whirl because I get it as part of the service, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge, deep game, so you got to have the time for it. But having it on Game Pass is going to be great. But we do have an actual launch date for that, and there was some confusion around there, so I wanted to throw that in. Originally, it was being promoted as December 12th on some outlets, but Xbox has officially come out, put on the Game Pass app, put on everything Game Pass, that is coming December 19th next month. So, and you will be able to download use the download on day one option on the Game Pass app that you can just go in there, have it set to go. Once it's launched, it'll download automatically. So just wanted to recap that or throw that in there before we head into the big topic. So
Yeah, because the game's huge, isn't it?
oh my god, I mean it's alone it is. Here, let me actually. I'm curious what the let's see. The average play time for just the main story alone is 51 hours.
Wow,
So,
okay.
And this isn't the Game of the Year edition, this is just the base game, but still, the base game comes with, if you're a completionist, the average time on this on how long to beat, people are recording at 173 hours. So there's a shit ton of content. Plus, you can, I'm sure, go out and get them for dirt cheap on top of that if you really wanted to. You can get the Blood and Wine and Hearts of Stone DLC that the main stories alone are like full-fledged games. They're like 15 and 10 hours respectively. So there's a shit ton of content on top of this. So it's one of the best values in gaming is getting one of the most, best bang for your buck, if you want.
I mean,
to say.
yeah, with the hours to play alone is,
Yeah.
you see 51 on a storyline on the vanilla game. Like, this isn't DLC. This isn't, down or purchase and download new storylines. This is literally just the vanilla game is 50 hours. That's insane.
Right, exactly. So, something to look forward to there. Guys, let's head into our big topic. And as I was kind of putting the show notes together, this is one that, at least on our last note that we had there about Xbox and games as a service and whatnot, that kind of hit me. I want to talk about how developers and even publishers, to an extent, how they can rebuild trust for those who are kind of been down the dumps and made some wrong decisions. So obviously creating video games is hard. Like verbatim, we know that. We're not saying they're easy, whatever. Years of work, missed time with families, all end up being judged in this vacuum on release. And at that point, you could have one thing that'll make or break a game right from that get-go, or even a studio for that matter, and it tarnishes the game's reputation. Look at Anthem. It came out, it had issues with it, and people have barely talked about it since. And it's all but buried alive for the most part. But and recently we've seen studios such as Bethesda Game Studios and Valve, who's had these cherished IPs that we've cherished for so long, make such poor decisions, to say the least, with their fan bases. Like everything with Fallout 76, the Fallout First payment model that's coming to that is like, why would you do that? And Valve announcing Artifact a few years ago, when people were just ready for a full-fledged actual Valve designed and developed game, they release a card game. And to those who like Hearthstone and whatnot, but it's almost similar to the Diablo Immortal situation. But and along with newer studios founded to oversee IP, such as like 343 with Halo. They continue to make you wonder, outside of money, like, why the hell do you keep shooting yourself in the foot? It's not a long-term recipe for success. But at the same time, in 2019, more and more we begin to see redemption stories in situations like this, like such as games launching poorly and getting post-launch support, like breaking it down and building it back up, such as No Man's Sky, Rainbow Six Siege, the Assassin's Creed games, the newer ones from Origins and on. People are really enjoying because they took a step back and sat there and said, okay, how can we get people back on our side? How can we fix and get back to what people want? Or how can we advance these games in the way that people do want? So I want to talk about today how developers and publishers can fix the trajectory for a product that launches wrong. And for cases like Bethesda Game Studio, who for the longest time we've cherished so long, how can the team gain trust with its fan base again, heading into their next big projects like Elder Scrolls 6, Starfield, even Fallout 5 in the distance? So, where do we start, guys?
Just for clarification on the topic, are we discussing solely business decisions gone awry, or are we talking about gameplay and other things also?
I think they go hand in hand. So okay. I want to talk on both. If you have business decisions, because look at, for example, Fallout 76. They introduced the Fallout First subscription to it, where instead of saying our user base is so low, or was so low, and our reputation is so low on top of that, instead of backing all of the content you've then been promising, such as bringing NPCs into the game, bringing a more traditional Fallout experience to this game. Instead of doing that, you push that back, you delay all of that, which, hey, stuff comes up, development, things happen, you know, maybe they don't want crunch or whatnot, I get it. But then you introduce, at the same time, a paid subscription to that game.
Yeah, like that to me is like, not only is the game bad, but then you make a really bad decision for the growth of your game, for the like support of the fans. So I just wanted to clarify that before I answer.
Yeah, both, because you could have poor business decisions made that really fuck up the launch of a game, or at the same time, you could release a game that is just not polished, like Anthem, that had issues with its servers and connections and whatnot on top of that. So both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, I'd love to answer. I mean, once like it's tough. So I'll go through a few examples and what my reaction was and what I thought should have been done, just to kind of give clarity to my answer, because I have become, like, me and Adam both have used the word cynical when we can refer to ourselves as gamers now. I have become increasingly cynical, and I've become increasingly doubtful of publishers and developers. So I'll use the latest example for the first one, the new Modern Warfare. You know, some people enjoyed it from a public, like, just from like a casual point of view, just, oh yeah, I'm going to go play COD, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go place a bunch of claymores. I'm going to use a shotgun. Hee, it's fun. I don't have to be any good at this game to play it. Which is like a COD, like that's their DNA, you know, having easy kills, easy things to make people feel better about themselves. But this game specifically, upon release, was really bad. It had seemed like their beta process did nothing for them. They didn't make any changes that they should have. It was awful. And upon release, it was really awful. So I download this game and I start playing it release night, and they have motion blur turned on for console gamers. They have film grain, which I don't know if that was to make it look more cinematic or what the case was for that. But they have all this stuff turned on that's just not any good. The gameplay is not any good. The weapon balancing is not any good. It's just all around a pretty bad game multiplayer wise. So you give us this game, and then, you know, I haven't played it since, probably a day or two since release. I just haven't played it. And then they do release an update. Woohoo! They release an update, and it's 76 gigabytes for me to download. So at that point in time, I installed the game from my hard drive, and I'm currently in talks with Microsoft to get it refunded because I just don't want the fucking thing anymore. That's bad. And I just have zero trust for Call of Duty as a franchise. Not only Infinity Ward, who made the game, but just in general, I just don't think the games are any good, and they haven't been good for quite a while. The only reason why it has popularity is the money that they like ingest into the competitive scene. And, you know, it's just a casual game. It's very good for casual gamers. They can place claymores. Oh, and there's a perk where you can have 2 claymores that are almost impossible to kill. They're impossible to destroy without killing yourself. Oh, and you can place them anywhere. You know, like, so you give people 2 claymores and a shotgun, and they're just having fun. So I just don't trust that developer. So I just want to get rid of the game. You know, you mentioned Bethesda, 343, like, all these companies just come to mind where things that they just did are just awful. And I think the only way that you can really gain trust from someone like me, once I start doubting you as a gamer, is to admit your fault. You know, Bethesda's like, oh yeah, you know, we fucked up. Oh, but also here's a subscription service. And it's like, again, like, how am I supposed to trust you when you admit that you did wrong and it's awful, but then you want us to pay a subscription service for when you fix it? Like, that just doesn't seem right to me. So I'm really doubting Bethesda's legitimacy right now, personally, because you can't do things like that and expect people to trust you. You know, Anthem, they're remaking the game, and they're, you know, doing things to fix it. 343, they admitted they did horrible with MCC, and, you know, they're working to fix it. Like, if you are extracting more money out of people, paying $10 more for Halo Reach really isn't that hard of an ask. So while it's still like, I really wish I got it for free. Probably should have came for free, but I get it. Like, I'll pay the $10 for Reach. Don't get me wrong. Like, that, I don't have as much of an issue with that as I do with, like, paying for a subscription service. And Bethesda has come out, said they were wrong, doubled back on it by charging for a subscription, where if they were just like, you know, we're going to give you some free stuff because the game was horrible. And I get that they want to pay their employees, but let's get one thing straight. Bethesda's not hurting for money. They can afford to pay their employees to fix the game. That's not an issue. It's just like a simple thing with greed, and like their legacy seems like it has fueled their decisions to make the decisions they've made.
Mm-hmm. Now, like, in you kind of saying that, bringing up Bethesda and us just having Valve on the mind, and even talking about this a few minutes ago, I continuously, in the rumor mill that I keep up on and kind of sources that I have, that I kind of respect what they say, and I trust what they're saying. I keep hearing about how troubled the development of Starfield is, with Todd Howard keeps getting pulled away from the main Rockville, Maryland studio and being pulled to Austin to work on Fallout 76 stuff, and his touch on things is being less and less, felt on the things that made his previous game successful. Whether you liked Fallout 4 or Skyrim or Oblivion or whatever, Fallout 3, he did have an integral part of all those games, and they were critically acclaimed and commercially successful comparative to what you're seeing with Fallout 76, and he's being spread in a lot of directions. But I keep hearing about how Starfield is struggling to make the transition with the creation engine and the updated Gamebryo engine, I guess if you want to call it too, but the creation engine, where you see, Valve kind of, you go quiet for years about making a new game. You go quiet for 10 years, but you come back with a brand new engine, a Source 2 engine, an updated engine for the next generation of games that you're going to put out. And you come out with something, at least in the direction of what people have been asking for. They've been asking for a full-fledged Half-Life game, where people have been asking for a full-fledged Elder Scrolls or even Starfield, a new single-player experience comparative to a Fallout 76, where it's like, okay, yeah, maybe a smaller vocal minority of your audience has been wanting a multiplayer Fallout, but I'm sure more are just wanting a Bethesda Game Studio single-player experience, cough, cough, Elder Scrolls 6, that they've been asking for years and years and years. And I get that, ZeniMax, who owns Bethesda in general, like, I'm sure they have a lot of say in what goes out of there from a business and a financial standpoint, but, like, people will eat this shit up if you put out what they're asking. People will put their money where their mouth is. They'll be willing to give you more money than you're asking if you put out something that they want and something that they want to buy into. And you kind of turtling, and especially Bethesda turtling and saying, oh, well, yeah, we're going to, at E3 last year, coming out and saying, hey, we're going to updating Fallout 76. We're putting in NPCs. We're retooling it to make it more of a traditional Fallout experience that you've been wanting. Also, we're going to add, we're going to test out some new stuff, but it's all free. It's all free content. We just want you to come in, try it out, but we're building this back up, which is great. I was like, it may not be
the move.
That was the move to make. You go out there and you admit you eat crow. Todd Howard went out there and fucking ate crow, and I give him credit for that, because he went out there in front of thousands of people and millions of people probably watching online, went out there and said, we dropped the ball, and this is what we're doing to fix it. This is the trajectory we're moving. We're working on, fixing a lot of the technical issues you've also had as well. But here's the roadmap for what we want to do. And I think a roadmap is the most important thing whenever you're trying to pick up the pieces and fix what's going on. But
agreed.
What was I going to say? It was right on the tip of my tongue. Oh, but then to turn around and say, like, okay, listen, we've run into some development issues with getting this to work. Please be a little more patient. That should have been it. Hey, we're delaying this. Like, we don't want crunch to happen during, the holidays for our employees and whatnot. Yeah, spin it that way. That's fine. Just say that, hey, we're delaying the big update that's going to fix a lot of your qualms and make the game what we envision it. Don't fucking throw in Fallout first. Like, why would you come out and then say, oh, we're also throwing in the subscription method for you to pay into this game for, what is it, like $120 for the year or something?
Yeah.
It's like $10 a month.
At what point, like you said, they keep pulling away Todd Howard, and I know this might not be what people want to hear, but at what point do you just cut fucking ties with something that sucks so bad that you just say, you know what? For everybody that has Fallout 76, we're going to make sure Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas work on your PC because, well, Fallout 3 certainly doesn't work on the computer at all. It constantly crashes for me. We're going to stabilize those older Fallout games for you. And if you don't have them, we're going to give them to you for free. If you do have them, we're still going to, polish it, or not even polish. Like, I don't even like want a remaster or anything. I just want the game to run when I play it.
Right.
Like, and then just be done with Fallout 76. It fucking sucked. It didn't work. You can't make the rest of your games suck ass too because the one that you thought was going to be the cash cow blew. You just got to cut ties at some point.
Right. And people are working on this. It's not like people are sitting there twiddling their thumbs or whatnot. And there are people who are trying to make this the best experience possible. I think this is a situation with Bethesda that is so big, and having this big, large company, ZeniMax, overseeing them, the grip becomes tighter and tighter, I think, from what they do, comparative to what you saw from 2004 to, or 2002 to, whatever, post Skyrim, let's just say.
Right.
This decade, you're seeing more and more grip in trying to, just because it's the trend of trying to wring out as much money as possible with these games, whenever it should be more focused on making the experience good first and foremost in a launchable state. But then, like I said, all the most successful games that you see, games as a service, hell, single player experiences like Assassin's Creed, they all, when they're launching, they say, okay, here's the game first and foremost. Here's the game that you've been asking for. Here's what we've done with the game. All the things you've been saying you liked, wanted to improve on from the previous game. Here they are. This, great. After you played the game, though, and we're not going to release this for, 2 months or whatever, but here's a roadmap of all the content we're going to put out. We want you to keep playing in this world, and we want to give you good reasons to doing it. Like I said, I keep using Assassin's Creed because Ubisoft is so vocal about being upfront with what's coming, but in a way of, hey, this is a single player experience. You're not getting multiplayer experiences. You're not getting this and that. Here's this thread you pulled on in the game. We're doing a whole big DLC expansion for that. You go down there, there's new islands to look at, or there's a whole new campaign that's 15, 20 hours or whatever. Go do that. Then we're going to do episodes built on top of that. And it's all just exterior content, but the game first and foremost is great and works and is deep and is compelling. But they also give a roadmap of, hey, here's what's to come next. Not just, hey, let's rush to get the game out. Oh, also, here, now open your wallet up because we got more content that's coming. Whenever you can't even get the game right in the first place.
Yeah.
Adam, what do you think, man?
So a couple of thoughts from the conversation going on. I feel like a lot of the times when you have a flop release, something like, I feel like the launch of Anthem was probably a loss for BioWare. I don't think they got enough people buying in the beginning with kind of how broken the game was.
And I mean, it previewed well. Like, a lot of people playing, a lot of people within the press playing early builds of the game, noticing, hey, this is a demo, this is a beta, whatever. Like,
yeah,
we expect some of the, we're okay with seeing some, things that need polish still because it's a beta. It's still it's in alpha still. Like, this is a first build of this game. But what feels great is the flying. All the mechanics feel great. We'll worry about, whenever your game launches next year, hopefully the rest of that stuff's figured out. But
if it launches,
yeah,
because it might not even load.
Yeah,
I'll say, to Mike's point, you have to make an honest decision as a developer and a publisher whether you can make back your investment and break even by trying to extract a little bit more value or trying to get more people to buy in after launch just so you can break even. If you can't break even financially, then you have to go in on goodwill and say, hey, own up to all your mistakes and make concessions to the player base so that when the next launch comes around, you don't have just crickets and there's no one who wants to invest in your title.
Yeah.
Because if you try to squeeze people just so you can break even financially, they're not going to come around the next time when your next game comes out.
Right, and then you're going to have to even you're going to have to almost pay people to review your game. And then you get into a situation I know they already do give out money for people that test and do things of that nature. But then you're going to get dangerously close to the point where are you gonna lose your credibility because you're gonna have to pay people to be like, yeah, give our game a decent review, or
Well, I don't
tell
know.
everybody
A lot of that isn't present, but you're not wrong. In streamers and content creators are given like, hey, here they don't necessarily like. I shouldn't say that. Like big names like Ninja and Shroud and people like that. Like Shroud and Ninja were paid to play Gears 5 leading into its launch. They were paid to go and do that. 100%. I agree with that. But most are still like, because a lot of people now are so wise to like those things that used to happen with that, of they'll just call people out on social media and all their bullshit of like, well, no, I'm not going to take dirty money. Like, that's going to kill me in the long run. People are then going to come in my chat and be like, oh, you're a fucking sellout. Granted, they already do, but like, oh, you're giving this a good game or a good grade because of you got paid X million dollars to go play this. But a lot of devs do come out, or publishers, I should say, do come out and say, by all means, give your thoughts, whatever. Don't hold back. Because
they're not on the leash just because they're getting paid.
No,
so like, but there's kind of an expectation for Ninja to. If Ninja was like, this game is perfect and it has no flaws, no one would believe it because everyone knows what he's getting.
But like at the same time, he's getting a paycheck from these devs. So is he going to be brutally honest? And the answer to me, to both he and Shroud, and I'm not saying that they're sellouts, and I'm not saying that this is bad, but like, how like. Just put yourself in their shoes. Are you ever going to like badmouth a dev? Because guess who's never going to pay you again to play another one of their games?
Yeah, but
so you can't be like, this game sucks ass.
Somebody else would. Like, look how big they are. Yeah, of course.
I mean, yeah, someone else is going to pay you.
What do they have to lose? There's still people who are going to come in their chat. There's still people who are going to come and sub to them no matter what, dono to them, all that stuff. At the same time, too, okay, if he's honest about that, one, if it's on a big enough platform, people are then being like, oh, fuck, I'm not going to buy this game, and he shows what's wrong, that's more incentive for the publisher to then go to the dev and say, we need to fix this a month out, or we need to get a patch out for this to combat all these things, because now people know about this, and at the end of the day, it could end up selling more if they fix these things and they're vocal about it. But at the same time, too, like, they're big enough that somebody else is going to come, Bethesda will come along, hey, play Starfield, like, okay, you don't want to deal with them, well, here's a check to play Starfield. Like, they're still going to because their audience is so big.
I see what you mean, but at the same time, they're not going to publicly criticize a game on their stream with like 100,000 people watching, or, you know, not that many, but with all their viewers, they're not going to do that. They're going to be in private contact with the dev, say, hey, you know, I gave it a decent review to my followers. I let them know, like, yeah, this is what I would like to be changed or whatever. Like, they're going to be honest, even if the game's bad, and they're going to say there's some things about it that, like, they're going to say some negative things about it.
They're not going to, like, slander.
But they're not going to be brutally honest with their viewers because they have private contact with the dev that they can be brutally honest with.
I mean, yeah.
And to your argument, like, oh, like, they're just going to get someone else to pay them. Like, absolutely, there's other people that are going to pay them. But why would you cut off your own, like, tributaries if you're going to, like, trash a game, even if it's honesty and even if it's like a good idea to be honest? Why would you put yourself in a negative place like that with a dev and cut off like a possible money source when like your money source is all your stream and when people are paying you to play their game? Like, it doesn't make any sense for them to cut off a source of income just to be honest to their viewers, because that's not going to happen.
No, I to that point I agree. You don't want to like you're not going to go out there and slander them. That could, like, you're not going to be like, oh, this game fucking sucks or whatever on there. No, they hope that you will give them constructive criticism to their audience, because at the end of the day, most people anymore just view free publicity or paid publicity. Publicity in any manner is good publicity, because your game is at least getting in the eye and, you know, word of mouth or whatever. Like, you're getting in front of thousands of people no matter what. Mm-hmm. But I agree, they're not going to go out there and slander it. But most of those guys don't get into contractual agreements if they can't say anything, because then people will leave their chat. Like, if they're just, oh, this game's fucking awesome, like you're saying. I think we're saying the same thing, we're just coming at different angles for it.
Yeah, basically. I mean, You're saying, I think you're giving them too much credit for criticism. Like, I think you're saying that, like, streamers are able to be more more critical of the games they play than they are, which is true. Like, I think they're free to say whatever they want, but I'm saying the integrity with the streamers, while there, because they will criticize things, I'm concerned with the legitimacy of streamers playing these games on stream and being brutally honest and saying everything under the sun that they want to say about the game.
Mhm.
I think that they sugarcoat things because they don't want to piss off the dev
Mhm.
and they don't want to possibly miss out on reviewing the next game for them.
Yeah. No, I do agree. I think there's such a tightrope that they do walk, I'm sure, because like I said, I know for a fact a lot of the big names, even I'll give one example. Kind of funny is Greg Miller. Like, he hosted EA Play's E3 event over the summer, and he went in saying like in his contract, talked about it live, like, I don't sign anything, I don't do anything unless I like have free control of what I say. And like whenever it was going off the air, he even said on there, he was like, come on EA, give us Skate 3 or something like that. He was like, that wasn't on there. Like, they told me that's fine, they don't care. Like, he just has 1 million plus followers that when he tweets out, hey, I'm doing this, they're gonna get all this publicity and no matter what. So,
Right.
So I agree with what you're saying. Don't get me wrong. I just think there's much more of a balance there, and I think we're both saying the same thing, just different angles at it, I guess. But anyways, Adam, Mike and I have been talking. What else? I feel like we've been like controlling the conversation this whole time.
That's okay. I want to try to get back to
get us back on the rails, because Lord knows I drive us off at all.
That's all right. To recap a little bit, we're saying that developers need to make an assessment of whether they can make a financial recovery from a release that doesn't go well. And that has to be an honest and introspective decision. Like, can we really make our money back from this? And if the answer is no, then you have to turn to goodwill of the player base so that you have an audience come next release cycle. You know what I mean?
Right.
Something like No Man's Sky, which has made a pretty noteworthy about face
Yes.
of publicity, and like, they definitely went the route of, we're going to make a goodwill comeback rather than a financial comeback, because I don't think there's anything that's been added to that game that's been to monetize it. You know, if you own the game, you get all the updates.
Mm-hmm.
And that's good for them even in the short term, because as the game recovers, you might get more sales and you might actually see a bit of a longer tail on your recovery there. Mm-hmm. But when Hello Games comes out and makes a sequel or their next title, whatever they're doing, they're going to have a more reliable audience to draw on, because
mm-hmm.
they didn't just leave something in a broken state and move on and leave people in the lurch. Mm-hmm. They improved the game until it met expectations, and they kind of proved themselves again.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, that's Hello Games and No Man's Sky is the
story.
It's the story. It's the textbook example of, you launch, I was part of the problem, not part of the problem, but I was one of the people who bought No Man's Sky, not on release, but around release. I bought it on Black Friday, the year that it launched, like a couple months later, because it was down to $20. I was like, I'll give it a try. Like,
yeah.
I played it for 20 minutes and the game crashed and I never put it back in. But I really want to go and start playing it again because of the Beyond update, because after post-launch, whenever shit was going wrong, they went dark and they said, like, they didn't say anything, and Sean Murray just has come out now and said, like, told the team, like, just head down, take the beating, and all we gotta do is put our head down and get to work, and go dark.
You might have to do a little bit of free work, to be quite honest,
right? And because that team's not huge, that is not a huge team. Hello Games is not a big studio, like,
yeah,
and that's a game that had a massive expectations to it. It's an endless universe you can go explore and craft and get resources and different things like that. But like,
I want to capitalize on the point that it's not a big team, because that could dispel any expectation that a larger team is just unable to do that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Mike, earlier you mentioned something about Bethesda going back and making their legacy Fallout games just work on PC, which I think would be amazing. It would bring a lot of value back to those games in 2019. Some people might say, in this day, like, you know, there's no way they're going to do that because they're not going to make any money off of that. Like, they're going to be putting developers on a project that's not going to bring in any revenue. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's quite true, because you might see some sales from that if the game starts working on PC again. Granted, most people who wanted to play those games probably have played them, and they've been playable if you install unofficial patches and go through all that rigmarole, but it is a pain in the ass, and it's something that should have been like, it's something you expect the developers to do, not the fans.
You shouldn't have to mod it to make it work.
Well,
know?
they
Absolutely.
did, especially when the fact of last year, I remember I believe, it was December. I got it pulled up here. Fallout 76, when everything was shitting the bed with that game, and all these people were worried about, the collector's edition with the bags and whatnot, them not getting actual legitimate bags. They're getting like these shitty bags for the helmet, and the helmet having like a like void of warranty already or something on it, like a factory defect. That everyone who did buy that collector's edition, one of the things they did get was Fallout 1, Fallout 2, and Tactics for free. So
right. And that's kind of a gimme.
Right, but at the same time, especially to Mike's point, like, that shit should just work, especially if you're giving people a branded thing, like, hey...
Dude, if it's available for purchase on Steam, it should fucking work. Period.
Yeah.
I went on and bought Fallout 3 thinking, oh, this game will just work. Yeah. I had paid good money for it. Nope, guess what, bitch? It ain't working. Okay, well, fuck me, I guess.
It reminds me of when I was booting up Warcraft 3 the other day, and I encountered a similar problem where there's a bug that was introduced when they made some kind of updates to their classic games recently so that they integrate with Battle.net or something.
Sure.
They had a tools team go back through, and one of the bugs they introduced, they caused a regression by updating the game where... in some campaign missions, your hero will lose their inventory.
That's awesome.
Which is really dumb. And I think, there's a bit of a workaround in there. You might get your items back on like the mission after that where it's fixed. But essentially, I went down this forum rabbit hole of like, are they going to fix it? No, they're probably not going to fix it because they probably have all their guys working on the remaster. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, if you want us to buy your remaster, you should at least make sure that the old game works and isn't like full of regressions that you introduced because you updated your game in 2019,
Yeah.
If they could I don't think it would take long for them to put someone on that task for like a week, 2 weeks, maybe a month. I don't know how long it would take for them to fix that, but that would go a long way towards currying goodwill for like, hey, maybe I am actually going to buy the remaster because at least I know they care about more than just my money. Like at least I think there's going to be some integrity behind the effort to remaster a beloved game.
Yeah.
Right.
And one thing, kind of just building off of this and having a studio like that's probably not parallel in terms of, what they're putting out in terms of quantity and quality because they're not publishing as many games comparatively as Bethesda. But you look at a studio like Rockstar or a publisher and developer like Rockstar who may only put out a game, once every generation for the most part. I mean, we're going now a generation without a mainline Grand Theft Auto game, or a new one, right. I should say. But it just, this whole situation bears in mind what Miyamoto has always said of, a rush game will always be bad. And granted, our conversation kind of contradicts that, where we can improve that. But at the time point being, like, if you launch a game bad, people are going to remember it for being bad, and it's a lot harder to build that back up, where if a delayed game comes out and it's good, people will remember it being good because it was good when it launched at the
exactly.
Yeah, I think we're coming up against the limit of that common wisdom because it was probably said in a time
it was in a time when carts needed to be printed and stuff, and once you go gold, quote unquote, you're gone gold forever. Like there's no
what are you gonna do? Release a patch on a new cartridge?
They actually did sometimes. They would change what was pressed onto carts like mid production. That's why in The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, you have some copies of the cartridge just on the Nintendo 64 that have the crescent moon and star iconography in some of the dungeons, and some of them have the frog pattern. Some of them have a censored Fire Temple soundtrack, and some of them don't have it because they were older.
Yeah, the release carts all have that, and then once they got to the Players Edition or like the greatest hits copy that they put out.
Something like that.
It was censored by that point. But it's obviously a much bigger financial undertaking comparative to putting a patch out in 2019.
Bringing it back in, even if you were to try to still extend that logic today to, well, if you launch a broken game, even if you fix it, people are going to remember it as a broken game. I feel like we're coming up against the limit of that as well with some of these comeback stories that we're seeing these last couple years.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I agree.
I think it's definitely possible to recover from a loss of trust and from a bad release, but you have to play it so carefully. And you can't try to, the point I'm going to keep coming back to is you can't just try to squeeze your player base like they're dupes, like you're conning them into giving you their money. You have to have an ongoing business relationship with your audience, and that means winning back some goodwill with maybe a little bit of free work.
Mm-hmm.
It honestly does feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone, and these devs are like, Bethesda included, are like, hey bud, don't forget you bought our game for $60. Oh, by the way, pay more for it to be fixed. And it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
How does that work?
But
like, I already paid for the game.
Also, too, like, you have to think, like, not, and I agree, they are doing that verbatim. Like, that's shitty and not fair to people who invested already $60 in your game. And even to the extent of, like, you look at Rainbow Six Siege now, where you bought the game in 2015, 16, whatever it was, for $60, and there was bare bones content with it, where I went in at $20 and got, you got
more ops and everything. That's why I quit playing that game. Like, everyone's coming in later at a better stance. Tons of new maps,
tons of new content, tons of free cosmetics that you could buy. Like, it's all...
And they spent less money than me.
Yeah. So, like, there is, and that's kind of a different conversation. But point being, it fits into this where, you should be taking care of those people who were early adopters to an extent. Of if you're buying it in a broken state, you should be able to, like, you should be able to. If you're buying a game in a broken state and you're not knowing it, then that's just bullshit to begin with. It's just you shouldn't be releasing it like that.
Yeah, like I beta tested the game. Mm-hmm. Like, not that I expect to like be treated differently because I was a beta tester. Like, no. I understand, like, you can't treat beta testers differently. Just because they helped you out doesn't mean you can get any cool things from it. But not only did I beta test, I was one of the first purchasers of the game, and then the fuckers are giving out the game for $30 cheaper later and giving people more shit.
Right.
It's like, wait a minute. Yeah, it's like, what in the world is happening? This is literally why I quit playing Rainbow Six Siege. The game was kind of boring to play in ranked too, but like outside of that, it's just like they're giving everybody else who didn't actually help them at the beginning way more stuff. It's unfair.
Yeah. No, I agree. Totally agree. But yeah, so what we kind of settled on today, we're thinking being upfront and open, obviously, saying if shit goes wrong, being upfront about it, say you're show what you're fixing, give a roadmap. What else? Just refresh me. We went over a lot. There was a lot of different conversations.
I mean,
free
work.
Which is a hard pill to swallow sometimes.
Yeah, it comes after an assessment of whether it's necessary, but that has to be an honest conversation.
Yeah, especially because like I feel like if anybody came into your place of work and was like, "Hey, you messed up really bad, fix it," and you're not going to be on the clock for it, people are going to be like, well, "Wait a minute, what?"
That's in my line of work. I do software development. It's like enterprise software. Mm-hmm. When we say free work, that means that we're diverting money from other parts of the organization. Basically, we're cutting into our own profits so that the customer isn't paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
The workers are still being paid, but the company isn't earning revenue.
Right.
That's what I mean by free work.
Right. So, I just wanted to make sure I wanted to make sure our listeners had a clarification on that.
Yeah. If Hello Games can afford to just run off of sales and stay afloat and turn their game around, a big studio like BioWare could probably do it.
And Bethesda.
Bethesda could do it. They can afford to pay their people and still turn their game around.
Yeah, poor Todd Howard might have to take a little bit of a pay cut. Oh, I'll weep for him. Don't worry.
Yeah.
For 1 year, he has to take less money. Sorry, Todd Howard. I'm sure you'll cry about it.
Big props and rest in peace to Satoru Iwata and other executives of Nintendo who took pay cuts before their workers when times were tough during the Wii and Wii U periods.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, and that kind of goes into the whole conversation that's going on right now with billionaires and, you know, what they should be, with how much they're making and their taxes and whatnot, and some even paying nothing. You know, like
I'm not even like I don't even think we're not even trying to be political about it, and you're not either, and I'm not saying you are. But for any listeners out there that might feel like this has political connotations or undertones, that's like, it's not even the fact that it political. It's like
sensible, logical.
Like, yeah, like how would it make sense for Todd Howard to like for instance, T-Mobile's CEO John Ledger makes $62 million a year. If T-Mobile did something stupid and you were going to lose workers who are your grunt force out in the workforce, if you were going to lose those people, or you could take a $20 million pay cut, oh boy, you're going to still make $40 million. How fucking bad is your life really at that point? And that's like what I'm trying to say. Like, if Todd Howard's making millions and millions and he can take a little bit, even if he cut his pay in half to save everybody's jobs, who, by the way, I'm sure Todd Howard wasn't innocent in the whole Fallout 76. It was probably partially his idea for the game to happen. Why should his grunts that tried to do it for him get axed and lose their jobs, but he's not going to feel a difference in his life?
Right.
Like, I just feel like that's just common sense, and it's just like the decent thing for people to do.
No, definitely. I totally agree. But guys, that was a good conversation. I like that. I think there's some impactful things that we have there that I'm glad we had this conversation, because I've been thinking about this a lot, just especially after hearing the whole Fallout First stuff and you know, everything with that. That really kind of soured me too, because I was even thinking at times, I'm like, well, I got a free copy of it whenever I got my Xbox One X. Like, it was the Xbox One X was $100 off and included Fallout 76, and it was on sale because they couldn't sell those bundled things. Nobody wanted them.
Exactly.
Right? But I was even thinking about it, I'm like, well, when that, you know, right before that, I was like, well, when the big update does come out, the Appalachia update or whatever it was does come out, like, I kind of do want to jump in and try that out, because, like, I do love mainline Fallout game. Like, I'm much more of a Elder Scrolls fan than Fallout, but, like, I do really enjoy the Fallout games. I like Bethesda's writing a lot. Like, that's one of the things that does keep me coming back, because I like their world building, and I like the characters that they build around you in these games, because their dialogue's usually good, their storytelling's usually pretty good. Like, I want to check that out. I may jump back into it, and then when Fallout First was announced and they were pushing that back, I was like, nah, I'm good. I'm done.
Yeah, maybe not.
I'm done. That ain't gonna have any
that dog's not gonna hunt.
No,
yeah, as our boy Dukov would say from Fallout 3.
The boy ain't right. But anyways, I think that's gonna put a bow on this episode. Actually, talking about Rockstar, this might be a little this is obviously taken with a huge grain of salt, but this rumor kind of came across my my desk per se while we were sitting here. I had somebody send me this over Reddit, but take it with obviously a grain of salt. But this comes with Rockstar, and it kind of lines up with some LinkedIn listings that people were posting with Rockstar that kind of play into this, that makes me want to actually put it out there and say this could be credible to an extent. But Rockstar is developing an open world game with a medieval setting.
Huh.
So, like I said, take this with a huge grain of salt, but the source that I'm getting is that's been right before, about the GTA Online DLC and the Red Dead 2 story details. So obviously everything else with that I don't really want to say, but this is what they said. Rockstar's next game will not be Bully 2 or GTA 6. They're developing an open-world game with a medieval setting. Sword-fighting dueling will be a mechanic. Release date aimed for quarter 1, 2021. Announcement isn't that long away. Obviously sounds crazy, and you have no reason to believe me, but as I said before, this person's been very reliable.
Big if true.
Yeah, big if true. But that also lines up with a LinkedIn profile that was posted on the GTA 6 subreddit before, saying, where is it at? What the fuck? Where is it? Oh, here we go. Now that, yeah, this person from Rockstar, that they have under there on their LinkedIn profile, TBA IP, job responsibility, prop, environmental artist, creating game-ready models from scratch for props that may be crucial for gameplay, creating modular environment pieces with organic finish carefully following medieval architecture style.
That's awfully specific for a LinkedIn profile.
Right, that was posted a few months ago. Or no, I take that back, a week ago. My bad.
Okay.
So yeah, take that with a grain of salt, but that's a little capper on this week's episode. But guys,
Pretty exciting.
Yeah, I would be all for that because whatever. Once again, Rockstar's one of those developers and publishers that, well, 2K published it, but they publish a lot of their games internally too. At the same time, Rockstar's one of those gaming entities that, like Bethesda, they are divisive at times, some of their fan bases, but I always go back to Rockstar's writing. Their writing's spectacular, so I would be all for that. I think they would be excellent with that. But guys, I think that's gonna do it for this episode. Launching on Black Friday. Also look for our bonus episode. If you haven't seen it, we're gonna do a quick bonus episode that launches on Thanksgiving, talking about Black Friday deals, where us three are going to sit down and talk about those and give you what we think you should buy with your hard-earned money and what you shouldn't buy with your hard-earned money too, if you want to look at it that way. But look for that as well. But guys, where can people find you? Adam, where can people talk to you about games and what you think of the trajectory of games that launch and building trust back up for fan bases?
You can find me on Twitter at AC_Marshy. That's AC_MARSHY.
And PPAC, Mike, where can people find you?
You can find me at TOYSXLDIER on Twitter. And on Twitch, you can find me at MP_Toy Soldier.
Nice. And as always, I'm your host, Travis White, aka Travis, on most internet platforms. You can find me streaming from time to time on twitch.tv/Travless_, TRAVLESS_. You can find me on Twitter at Travless_, same as Twitch. And you can play some games with me on Xbox Live, just regular Travless, TRAVLESS. And that's going to do it. This has been your newest episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox and Xbox Game Pass, including news, rumors, and conversation around them video games, because they're damn cool. New episodes of the show drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. If we're not on there, let me know. So be sure to subscribe to us wherever you get the show, and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show and video games alike, and all of our giveaways that we are doing. So, guys, that's going to do it. Thank you so much for listening, watching a videoless show on YouTube, supporting us, and being a part of this growing community. Game on, play some fucking video games, and we'll see you next week.